We think that, in midlife, if we're controlling our blood pressure and our cardiovascular risk factors, if we're exercising, if we're avoiding obesity, we're doing our brain a favor down the road. If we can delay the onset, if somebody's destined to get Alzheimer's disease, and we can delay the onset 5 years, and we can do that across the population, we'll cut the prevalence of Alzheimer's disease by 50%. And that's a big deal. So if we can delay the onset of dementia by 5 years, we'll have a huge impact on the population.
20 years ago, we would have said that you have to have enough memory decline in order to not be able to really get through your day independently in order to have Alzheimer's. And then we started to realize that it takes a while for people to get to that point. It's not like a lot of diseases where a half of 1% of the population has it, or 1% of the population has it. This is a disorder where you get into some demographics, you get into some groups, and over half of the people in that group have it. For example, if you look at women over the age of 90, more than half will have Alzheimer's disease, which makes you wonder who's the normal group. This is one of the consequences of living longer, is that we're living to ages to which the nervous system may not have been meant to stay intact.
We just recently launched what we call the KU Alzheimer's Prevention Program. This is a program we've been working for a couple of years to develop. What we do with it is we actually do a very thorough Alzheimer's risk profile and a physical health profile as well. And part of that Alzheimer's risk profile is a new scan it's a PET scan that we're able to now do. It's been FDA approved and is available. And it's a scan that actually detects the presence or absence of amyloid plaques in the brain.
There are some very distinct changes that you see in Alzheimer's. One of the most obvious ones is you get atrophy, so the brain starts to shrink. As the brain cells deteriorate, they tend to disappear, and you can look at certain particular parts in the brain that are distinctive. So you can determine whether a person is likely to have an Alzheimer's presentation.
A lot of people who have no cognitive issues, in fact about a third of individuals over the age of 65 with no cognitive issues whatsoever have amyloid plaques in their brain. Amyloid plaques are seen in most people with the syndrome of Alzheimer's disease and dementia, and so this may represent some of the earliest changes that might be occurring 10, 15 years before the onset of symptoms.
There are a lot of trials going on right now that are looking at particular strategies for treating Alzheimer's disease, such as preventing the production of beta amyloid in the brain or removing it from the brain, but it's not proving to be promising a strategy as people would have hoped. If those changes are a consequence of something upstream, we may make the brain look better. We may pull the plaques out or make the tangles go away or get rid of the oxidative stress. But if there's a upstream problem that's actually driving all these changes, that upstream problem is still going to be there. So that's why we're very focused on what we think might be the upstream problem. We think that it may be this breakdown in brain energy metabolism that we know is occurring.
I'm involved in a study. KU hires a personal trainer at the YMCA nearest to where we live, and so I don't have to come here every day to exercise, but I go to the YMCA 4 times a week. I can tell that I have more stamina now when I work or when I exercise.
I'm part of the research study here on exercise in your brain, and I am happy to say that after 6 months of exercise, I did somewhat better on my treadmill test.
One of the things that our center is known for, and really Dr. Burns is really one of the world's leaders in, is how things like lifestyle changes can affect brain aging. We know that things like exercise and things like diet, that they do have an effect on the brain.
The theme of our center is metabolism, and from the level of a patient, the way we can alter metabolism easily is exercise and diet. Most of my focus in the research projects that I'm leading they're focused on exercise. So how can we use exercise to help the individual? We know exercise helps the body, but we're trying to answer the question, how does exercise help the brain? And then if it helps the brain, why? We're also planning a series of classes for the public, for a dietitian to basically give information on how do we cook healthy, and cook healthy specifically to promote brain health.
Simplest slogan would be, what's good for your heart is good for your head. So a lot of those same eating patterns that we recommend for a healthy heart are also what we recommend for a healthy head. It's really encouraging high fruits and vegetables, whole grains, low-fat dairy products, limiting the amount of meats and high saturated fats that you get into your diet, incorporating nuts and legumes, and lowering the solid fats and increasing the liquid fats.
People have wondered for a long time, can they affect their health through their diet? And obviously they can. But how would you specifically go about changing the brain through diet? Well, there are a lot of epidemiology studies that suggest there may be certain benefits to some of these diets. For example, a Mediterranean diet that's very high on olive oil. Well, some people have hypothesized that olive oil may be good for the brain, and that maybe that's protective. There have been some studies that have found that people who eat a lot of fruits and vegetables may have lower rates of Alzheimer's disease, and people have hypothesized that might be because of antioxidant molecules that are found in things like fruits especially. When you take a step back and you think about it, there are some very specific ways that you can manipulate the brain through your diet.
There's a lot of other things in development, and tend to be drugs in development, and they'll be coming. Studies will be coming, testing, are they effective at delaying the onset of dementia or preventing dementia. But we think the obvious choice, and we think there's more data to suggest that exercise may be better, even better than the drugs that are currently in development. Although part of the reason we're studying exercise is ultimately we do want to understand the mechanism and develop drugs that can do the same or do better than exercise alone.
The Alzheimer's drug development field is really at a crossroads. For over a decade, the Alzheimer's drug development infrastructure was very focused on evaluating the ability of beta amyloid removal, of plaque removal, and the prevention of beta amyloid production. Unfortunately, that hasn't panned out to any notable successes yet. Are these drugs not working because they're just being given too late in the course, and that once the disease has been kindled, once it's started, that it can't be stopped and its progression is inexorable? Or is it that it's not working because it doesn't work? On one hand, we may say, well, these drugs will work, we just need to start treating people earlier on and earlier on in the course of their Alzheimer's change. But that implies that we're going to be unable to help people who have Alzheimer's disease now, or who are going to get it within the next 5 or maybe even the next 10 years. We don't think that that's the way to go. We think we'll be able to help people who already do have Alzheimer's disease now, and so we're not giving up on anyone.